Homeowner question. How do I remove spray foam from an area in my home? Let's talk about it. You might be wondering, why would anyone want to remove spray foam anyways? It's supposed to be a permanent thing. Well, good point, but there are dozens of different reasons that in reality, sometimes you have to remove some foam. It could be if there was an issue with the application, if you're doing a remodel, or if you have to access something, or if there is damage for some reason, you have to access the wall to repair something. So there could be a ton of different reasons as to why you want or need to remove spray foam in a specific area. If you are in that situation, these are some tips. So we had a homeowner call in recently, and they had spray foam installed in one part of their house, but now they need to remove it, and they're asking us for advice. There's a lot to this topic, so I want to break it down piece by piece. The first thing to think about is it makes a big difference as to what material we're talking about. If it's open cell spray foam, if it's can foam, or if it's closed cell spray foam. All three can be removed, and the techniques and tools we're going to talk about are applicable for all three materials, but keep in mind, open cell is generally going to be the easiest to cut or tear away or remove. Can foam will be a little more difficult. Closed cell is going to be very difficult. I also want to preface with just reminding us that spray foam, whether it's closed cell, open cell, is designed to be a permanent one-time solution. This is why spray foam is usually required to be installed by a contractor with a truck and trailer system, because again, it's meant to be installed once and a permanent fixture to the home. So it's not meant to be removed easily at all. So keep that in mind. But now let's go into how are we going to tackle this task. If you have an area that needs to be removed, again, no matter what kind of spray foam it is, generally we're going to recommend hand tools first. You want to stay away from any really powerful like electric power tools or anything like that. Now, don't get me wrong, in a second I will get to some power tools, but what hand tools might you want to use? Things like bread knives or any sort of serrated blade are really good for cutting foam back, whether it's open cell or closed cell. Again, there are knives specifically made for cutting insulation that you might find in Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Menards or something like that. But keep in mind, a lot of times if you see insulation tools in a big box store, it's probably referring to fiberglass. You can probably use it, like those insulation knives can be used to cut spray foam, but just keep in mind, unless it's a really thick knife or something, it may struggle a little bit with some of the foam. Some of the other tools, flat bars, putty knives that are used for drywall and such. Anything that you can get in behind the foam and kind of pry or pop it off in sections is going to be things that's really helpful if you have a wide open area like walls or attics or something like that. Now, one more hand tool that's very useful that we found, especially for closed cell, is curry combs. You can actually find this at a Tractor Supply in the equestrian area. This is actually used for horses. You might also know it as a horse comb, but this is very useful for cutting back closed cell or shaving back closed cell a little bit at a time. With open cell, kind of an offhand thing, is actually your hand. Open cell, oftentimes you can grab it, reach right in, you can put your hand behind the foam. Of course, be careful of building materials, wood, nails, and such. But if you can get your hand behind it, you can take off huge chunks of open cell spray foam with just your bare hands, and then use some smaller hand tools to get any fine parts that are left behind. Now let's talk about power tools. You do want to be very careful when you're using power tools because obviously you don't want to damage the building. But something that's very, very useful would be either a power drill or even a grinder with a wire wheel. There are many, many different wire wheel attachments that you can use with a hand drill or a grinder, like an angle grinder or something. But wire wheels are very, very useful for getting off large amounts of closed cell. Again, you gotta keep in mind closed cell very, very hard. So that wire wheel can do a lot of work on the closed cell, getting lots of chunks of it off without causing too much damage to whatever is underneath any of the wood sheeting or things like that. Again, of course, you want to be careful. Make sure you're not bumping into studs and everything while you're doing this because it can be kind of a stressful process and you may have to use some force, especially when you're talking about closed cell, prying some of it off. So again, you just want to be very, very mindful not to damage the building. Now, I do also just want to take a second and talk about some commercial products that are available. And these are things that you typically might find spray foam contractors using to cut back or remove spray foam from different sections of the house. There are reciprocating saws that have special jigs and blades that are attached to the front so that you can cut back foam. This is really designed for cutting foam back to be flush with studs. So if you're trying to remove it from in between the studs, it may not be as helpful. But those options are out there. Something else like a CI cutter, and these are usually big, heavy machines that, again, you run up the studs to shave the foam back to the studs, may or may not be applicable for your situation, but know that those tools are out there. The last note that I want to give you about removing spray foam is be prepared with a vacuum of some kind and lots of brooms and dustpans. The reality is, anytime you have to remove spray foam, no matter what kind, you're going to have a lot of cleanup, and there's probably going to be tons and tons of little pieces of foam all over the workspace. If you had the availability to have a large vacuum or even a shop vac, that would be great. Worst case scenario, get some brooms and dustpans and be prepared to clean up lots of tiny little pieces of foam, because they will be everywhere. Now, I hope you found this helpful, and if you ever find yourself in this situation, refer back to this video and try all of these different tips and find out what's best for you. If you want to learn more about spray foam and how to make your home energy efficient, go to our link below to our learning center, where we have all kinds of blogs, videos, and articles, everything you need to know about your home. This is the Professor of Foam reminding you that building is a science.